It's a pretty fascinating development in that as a op-ed in the New York Times, I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration. New York Times saboteur inside the White House. It's interesting how the New York Times sets it up. The Times today is taking the rare step of publishing an anonymous op-ed essay. We have done so at the request of the author, a senior official in the Trump administration whose identity is known to us and whose job would be jeopardized by its disclosure. We believe publishing this essay anonymously is the only way to deliver an important perspective to our readers, especially 62 days out of an election. We invite you to submit a question about the essay or our vetting process here, not that they care. And it goes on that President Trump is presidencies unlike any we've faced. Special counsel looms large. Well, all evidence is there's no evidence of collusion. I could take this apart sentence by sentence, or that the country's bitterly divided over the president's leadership. That's happened many times in our history. Or the party may lose the House to an opposition party hell-bent on his downfall. That's not his fault. The dilemma, which he does not fully grasp, yes, he does. Yes, he fully does, is that many senior officials this party doesn't know in his own administration are working diligently from within to frustrate parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations. I would know. I am one. Pretty amazing, stunning betrayal. But to be clear, ours is not the popular resistance of the left. We want the administration to succeed and think that policies have already made America safer and more prosperous. Now, that's not going to be the focus, that part. And then we have, but it goes on, we believe our first duty is to the country, and the president continues to act in a manner that is detrimental to the health of our republic. What has he done? What has the president done that is not healthy? And then it goes on to say the root of the problem is the president's amorality. Anyone who works with him knows he's not moored to any discernible first principles that guide his decision making. This is where this is obviously all political. Because this president, more than any modern day president, has adhered to every single promise and fought to keep every single promise he has made. And it goes on this tangent about, well, that nobody likes that he says enemy of the people. Fine. Okay, understood. But then it goes on to this whole thing about Russia and North Korea, etc. Is it that we don't get the hostages back from North Korea? Is it that we don't get back the bodies of brave men and women that died many decades ago? Is it not good that Kim Jong-un stopped firing his missiles? And they're wrong, too. There's nobody that's been tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. That this is the environment we live in, where people think they themselves are bigger than others. Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, joins us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and I think everybody in the audience needs to understand what this person writing the New York Times is saying is that just because the American people, by the millions, selected somebody to be president, has no impact on them. That they are taking on themselves the moral authority to break the law, to repudiate the commander-in-chief, to basically repudiate our whole constitutional process. And they are now going to decide what they think is right. It's really, if you think about it, it is an amazing statement of their willingness to make themselves bigger than the entire American system. And it tells you what people mean when they talk about the swamp and they talk about the deep state. I mean, here's a person emerging anonymously in the New York Times to say, in essence, yes, I am the deep state, and I am going to do everything I can to make sure that President Trump cannot perform the job that the American people gave him. Now, if you think about it, that's an extraordinary statement of arrogance on the part of some person who didn't win the election, didn't run for office, has never told the rest of us what they believe in, but they've now decided not only that they're going to undermine the President of the United States, but they're going to go to the New York Times and tell the rest of the country how proud they are of undermining the American president.
You know what's amazing? Because it does remind me a lot of, like, Peter Strzok and his arrogant attitude, and Comey and some of these other people that have acted in ways that they show that they think, well, Peter Strzok, in his own words, they're smelly Walmart people, Trump supporters. And that, or irredeemable deplorables, or people that cling to their God, guns, Bibles, and religion. There's a contempt for the American people and their decision in this election. I've never seen a president that works so hard to stick to the promises that he's made, and it's just faulty on so many different levels. But this person has an agenda, and the agenda is to make themselves look good and hurt the president. But there's a super patriot mentality here. And tell me if I'm wrong, that they think they are better, that they think they are smarter, that they think their decisions are more important than what the American people think. It's a contempt, really, for the American people, a hatred of what they want and what they voted for.
Well, and if you look at the contempt for the entire process of honest, open self-government. I mean, you can like President Trump, you can dislike President Trump, but in a hard-fought 2-year campaign, he beat 16 other Republicans for the nomination. He beat Hillary Clinton in a $1 billion campaign and the left-wing news media for the presidency. And under our constitutional process, if this person doesn't agree with him, the correct answer is to resign. I mean, we have a system here where you can say, well, I find this guy to be so unacceptable as president, I'm resigning. That's totally honorable, and it would be out in the open. But instead, this person is basically saying to the whole country, I am taking on the right to sabotage the American government on behalf of whatever my whacked out values are. Because I've decided that I am smarter than the American people, I am smarter than Donald Trump, and that therefore I have every right to screw up the whole system. Well, if you think about it, that is an extraordinary series of things for somebody to say.
If this person is discovered and found out, would there be consequences besides being fired?
Well, I think you ought to start with firing. I think that's a good starting point. There might be consequences. The whole government, as you were pointing out about Peter Strzok, the whole government is riddled with people who burrowed their way in, who are sitting around with absolute contempt for the American people, absolute contempt for President Trump, and a genuine willingness to sabotage us every chance they get. And this is an ongoing, continuing problem. And of course, that's what happens when you get a genuine change election and the grassroots Americans rise up and decide they're sick of the bureaucrats and they're sick of the elites, and they want to have a real change. Well, you have to expect that the elites and the bureaucrats are going to cling to power as long as they can. And the job the rest of us have, starting with the president, is to just root them out and get rid of them.
Let me ask, now that we've got a lot more information and there's a lot developing on the deep state today, and what do we find out? That Bruce Orr and Christopher Steele, that they're talking about firewalls that they set up in a preview of James Comey's testimony before Congress. Then they're talking about, well, we hope we don't get exposed. And now we're discovering that, in fact, Christopher Steele is asking Bruce Orr, did you get the information to your friends at the SC, the special counsel? And now we find out that Andrew Weissman was getting materials from Bruce Orr that was funneled to him through Christopher Steele. And if you chase that back to where it all originated, it's all Hillary Clinton and money funneled through a law firm into an op research firm that hires Christopher Steele and ends up with Russian lies. Now it ends up right on the lap of Mueller in terms of their taking in the lies of Christopher Steele, who himself in an interrogatory wouldn't even stand behind his own dossier. Well, maybe 50-50. It's raw intelligence. I have no idea if any of this is true. And that's the basis of 4 FISA warrant applications and granted FISA warrants.
Someday when we can get enough distance, somebody's going to write this book and do this movie that are going to be absolutely unbelievable. I mean, but I see.
Well, who's going to play you and who's going to play me? That's all that matters. I'm kidding.
Oh no, we're bit players compared to the.
No, I agree. I agree.
But the key question is, can Roseanne play? That the system was so corrupt that the effort to stop Trump became so desperate, and the effort to prop up Hillary became so desperate, that so many different laws were being broken by so many different government employees, that sorting this out is going to take several years. And frankly, even today, partially because of the failure of the Justice Department, which is one of the real castles, if you will, or citadels of the deep state, and partially because the House and Senate Republicans just aren't aggressive enough, we still don't know how bad this is. I mean, Devin Nunes, to give him credit, has worked his tail off and taken a huge leap and continued to push. But there should be a much bigger concerted effort to dig into this and find out how bad it really is. I think that it is so sick that when we fully understand how bad it has been, we will realize how close we came to having our system just corrupted in a way that would not have survived.
Let me ask you about the election. 62 days from now, if you look at the polls, generic ballot, Republicans are down. If you look at the news cycle, I mean, Bob Woodward's book comes out, all the outrage of the day, the feigned outrage of the day, everything goes on. So I guess the question is, how do Republicans win in 62 days? And what are your feelings about it? I don't really have a feeling yet of how this is going to turn out.
Well, I have a paper you'll get a copy of in the next day or two on the 2018 election. And as you know, somebody who helped design 1980 and helped design 1994 and a few other campaigns, my view is really simple. If the Republicans have the guts to raise the really big issues and make this a really big choice election, they will break the Democrats. They will gain seats in the House, and they could gain as many as 8 seats in the Senate. Now, the problem is there's virtually no Republican consultant who has a vision capable of imagining that outcome. But the truth is, when Reagan ran in 1980, and I helped put together the first Capitol Steps event in history, and we got all those candidates up on the steps, we picked up 12 U.S. Senate seats in 1980. We won 6 of them by a combined total of 75,000 votes. Now, I can imagine a campaign this fall, which has a very similar pattern. Let me give you an example. 84% of the country, 84% believes that sanctuary cities increase the risk of crime. And of course, just had this tremendous crime in Houston, where 4 MS-13 gang members chopped to death, literally chopped into pieces, somebody who'd been collaborating with the Houston police force. So let's start with that.
Mm-hmm. All right, why don't we take a quick break? I got to come back, but I really want this strategy laid out. Newt Gingrich with us. All right, as we continue, Newt Gingrich is with us. I just want to let you free associate in the sense of 62 days. I think one of the most important midterms. Democrats want to impeach. They want open borders, get rid of ICE, keep Obamacare. They want their crumbs back. They want endless investigation, but not into the deep state. How do you win? How do you get people that voted for Trump to understand that their entire agenda is in jeopardy here?
Well, I think you make it a big choice election, and you hammer away at the things that matter in people's lives. You see in California with Democratic nominee Gavin Newsom, who has proposed universal free health care, which means that you're going to attract everybody on the planet who has a disease to come to California. I mean, if you explain that to the people of California, Newsom would be gone, and we would have had a revolution in the whole political power structure of the country. If you take the Feinstein bill for an open borders, which every single Democrat in the Senate has co-sponsored, every single one of the Democrats who's up for re-election could be in trouble. There's not a state in the country that has 25% of the people favoring open borders, because common sense Americans understand that in the age of the jet airplane and the age of the internet, if you had open borders, you'd have 40, 50, 60 million people showing up. be totally unsustainable.
It's unsustainable now.
Well, right, but I'm just saying, we have to have the argument to say, this is who they really are. This is what they want to do. They make them own their slogans. And I think a Republican Party that's willing to go toe-to-toe is like Margaret Thatcher or Ronald Reagan. You're willing to go to, it's what Trump did to Hillary in October of 2016.
I've got to run, but, Mr. Speaker, we're going to stay on this all throughout the 62 days leading up to the most important election, midterm election in our lives. Thank you for being with us.